why is our idea of freedom limited to not being encased within the physical walls of a prison? The carceral system has forced my freedom and the freedom of those incarcerated to be bound to the state at all times. I'm outside, but I'm not free.
My freedom is bound to the state. The FIR number keeps staying with me when I walk through the aspects of life. These are statements, very powerful statements from climate activist Disha Ravi's piece, which she's recently written for The Independent. Disha, like many other climate activists in India, many young people in India, was supposed to be at the COP summit in Glasgow this year. But because of a case against her, because the state is restricting her civil liberties, she could not make it to the COP. Today we speak to her about her freedom, about her case, and how important it is for young people to represent themselves at summits such as the COP26. Disha, thank you for joining us at The Wire today and speaking with us. It's a very powerful statement that you've written. Many excerpts from your piece at The Independent are ringing so true when we look at the political circumstances in the country. And you very clearly describe how it was your fundamental right, it could have been the right of any citizen to raise their voice, and it was denied to you. Your civil liberties were denied to you. So my first question to you is about that. What really transpired as your case is continuing? There has been a case against Disha which was quite in the limelight, but what doesn't get said about the case is the impact that it takes on a person's life, the impact that it takes on their political lives as well, and as a citizen in a democratic country. So Disha, what really happened, and how do you see this as a complete denial of your rights?
So firstly, even though I have a case, since the charge sheet isn't here, it is according to the Ministry of External Affairs, it is my right to get a passport in the normal process without getting a no objection certificate or an NOC. So I should just be able to get a passport like anybody else who applies for it under the normal process. But when I did apply for it, I was asked to get an NOC by the passport office, which I did. Even that took like two court hearings, but the court finally passed an order in my favor, and I got a no objection certificate. Even with that, the local police in Bangalore put my after the police verification process, it moved ahead in the passport office, and then I had to go for the passport police verification for the passport. And there they said that, like the whole process went through, and then it took really long for the whole process to go through. But even after that, they said that I had never mentioned my case, when in reality I spoke extensively about it with them. And they sent a show cause notice saying the same thing, and I had to reply to the show cause notice. So until I replied, it was put on hold. And when I I replied to the show cause notice now, and the passport office accepted that. But overall, it's been more than 88 days. I think it's almost 90 days now. And I still don't have my passport. And normally I know my friends who applied for passports after me, or even at the same time as me, and they got it in 5 days. And I didn't get it. I still don't have it, even after following all the due process, even after following processes that I wasn't, supposed to follow. And I still don't have it, because this is just how they treat people when it's two complete different things. What it's on paper is different. The rules of how you treat a person who is accused of charges, but what happens in reality is completely different. It's so far away from what is prescribed, and bail especially is granted to a person on the presumption of his innocence. And the court dictates the whole country to treat the person with that innocence. But in reality, it's not the case. And it's not just for me. This is just, the tip of a larger iceberg. And this is how people who are accused of crime are treated in this country. And there are studies that show that Priya Pillai, especially, she was also like off-boarded a plane. Even though she had all the necessary documents, she had all the necessary documents and permissions in place, but she still couldn't leave the country. Or even when she left, she was boarded back. She couldn't enter the country. So, and there was a recent case of a juvenile who was supposed to be treated as a normal person. He applied for work in the police force, actually, and he got the job. And then they found out that he had a case when he was below 18, and they rejected the job when rules state that he's supposed to get that job. So this isn't a one-off situation. This is a situation that all people who are either under trial or who are accused, they've even been, they've been found not guilty. All of these people have to go through the same thing, because that FIR number really never leaves you when rules dictate that the person is supposed to be treated like a normal person. So it's the larger picture of how the criminal justice system is completely different on paper, and it plays out completely different in real life, and it's really not fair. So is the system really working in our favor, even though we have been found innocent, or there is a presumption of innocence in my case? So, but it doesn't really work that way.
And what does it mean for your freedom? What does it mean for you to be free now? And you mentioned this very extensively about feeling that you're continuously being bound to the state. So how do you view your freedom as an individual now?
I think, honestly, I feel partly free a lot of the time because of these extensive processes that I firstly shouldn't have to take part in, because I shouldn't have had to get that NOC, right? Because rules state that I don't need to, but I still had to do it, and I did it. But despite that, I still don't have my passport. Despite that, I got a show cause notice. Despite that, I had to reply to that. So it's these long length of court proceedings that I shouldn't have been subject to in the first place. And it's the fact that people just have to go through all of these really long, lengthy legal processes just for the bare minimum, just to get a job, to get one single government document. And this isn't how it's supposed to be. We aren't supposed to be living behind red tape throughout our whole life just because of something that happened. So it's how different it plays out. And you're really not free, even if the court does declare you innocent, or even if it releases you on bail on the presumption of innocence.
Yeah. So if you were actually present at the COP, since it was such an important summit for young people, for people across the globe, and your voice would have really mattered if you were given an opportunity to be there, what would you have said? How do you take the entire situation around COP currently?
I think me leaving the country would still be privy to court orders, because in my bail condition, one of it is that I can't leave the country. So me getting a passport wouldn't necessarily mean that I would be allowed to leave the country. But what it would mean is that I would be allowed to, apply for an exemption to leave the country. So the final decision would still be the court. But I never even got to that stage because of all of this huge, long, lengthy process that was completely unnecessary. But and they made it seem like two very different things, right? They made it seem like as soon as I get a passport, I'll be able to leave the country, but that's not the case. Even if I did get it, it'd still be a lot of other lengthy processes, but we didn't even get there. And if I was there at COP, though, I was supposed to be there to report for GRIS. They're a non-profit news media outlet who cover environment and climate extensively. And I really wanted to talk about just how what India's role in it is, and how inconsistent our so-called ambitious promises at COP are. And I think also, while I understand that India has a huge role to play, because we are an economy that is going, not just an economy, we're a country that's going to be most prone to climate calamities. We are also a developing country. So we do need to demand global north to pay reparations to support in climate action. So I think that's also some of the things that I would have really liked to highlight. And just the fact that even if we get the support, are we in a position where we're prioritizing climate and environment in the country? We're really not. So I think these are some things that was necessary to highlight, because the environment is more nuanced than it may appear to be. Like it's easy for us as activists to say phase out coal, and it is important to eventually phase out coal. But the truth is that there are tens of thousands of people who are dependent on coal for their livelihoods. So what about them? So we need a just transition plan to move away from coal, make sure that those who are dependent on it get alternative livelihoods. But somehow this doesn't seem to be on the agenda. Like, sure, the environmental minister said that they want to phase down coal, but there is no plan of action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Another question is that from this entire episode, what kind of a message is going out in terms of people who are under trial, in terms of people who are being presumed innocent? So what kind of a message do you think should go out to the government, should go out in the world for people to recognize that how big of an issue this is?
I think we really need to focus on how the rules, while they are put in place for the well-being of accused and those presumed innocent, it's not really playing out in person. So I do personally believe that we should work towards a society that doesn't, in the long run, commit crime, because like prisons aren't essentially reforming anyone, because I've been in prison. I don't think that place is going to help anyone reform themselves. So I think we should work on a society that in itself doesn't birth crimes, and because prisons are clearly not working and the rules are really not playing out the way they're supposed to. So working towards a society that is so happy and that's so healthy that there is no crime will take time and will take effort, but that is something we should be focusing on, because we aren't working, the reforms in place aren't working. So I do believe that we should abolish like the castle state and work on abolition of crime from the root, because the imprisonment or anything, it's not the solution, because it's just not executed in the way that it's supposed to be.
So that was Disha Ravi speaking to us about the legal system in India, which has compelled her and so many other people to not live their normal lives, to not be being able to exercise their rights as political democratic citizens of this country. Thank you, Disha, for joining us.
द वायर के और वीडियोस देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें और बेल आइकन पर क्लिक करें। स्वतंत्र पत्रकारिता की आर्थिक मदद करने के लिए डिस्क्रिप्शन में दिए गए लिंक पर जाएं और अपनी राशि चुनें।